So the 𝐾𝐻EVS attack is named after a really famous grandmaster named Paul 𝐾𝐻EVS, who many consider to be one of the strongest, if not the strongest grandmaster in history, never to have won a world title. He played at a time when there was a lot of stiff competition at the top ranks among grandmasters, and he never quite got to the grand prize of being a world champion. But he made this really nice innovation in the 𝐒𝐕𝐸𝐸𝐸, which made a lot of players choose the Najdorf and not play the 𝐒𝐕𝐸𝐸𝐸. This is one of the reasons why a lot of players favored the Najdorf over the 𝐒𝐕𝐸𝐸𝐸 was because of this particular line. So sometimes a new variation, a new move, will basically refute one opening so well that if your opponent knows it, it almost makes it not worth it or not fun to play that, which is why, again, Fischer and Kasparov favor the Najdorf so much because of its flexibility. You can go into so many different lines no matter what your opponent does, that it just makes sense to play that particular opening a lot. So in the 𝐒𝐕𝐸𝐸𝐸, the best way to play against it for white, if you want to have a big attack, according to grandmasters, and if you look this up, you'll see from databases that white scores really well with the 𝐾𝐻EVS attack. And so it's on move 6, you play G4. It's very aggressive and it looks kind of crazy, but you'll see from some examples of what can happen if your opponent is not really careful. So let's go through the moves again. We go into 𝐒𝐕𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸, and then white says, oh, the 𝐒𝐕𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸, huh? 𝐾𝐻EVS attack, G4. And so if black doesn't respond very well to this and doesn't know what to do, they might just continue to develop normally and play this knight out and basically let their knight get pushed. And there's not really a great place to put the knight. You can block in this bishop up here, you can put it back to the original spot, and now white can immediately start pawn storming. And so but basically what this does, it kind of forces black to either not castle or to castle queenside, but castling queenside when you're playing the Sicilian kind of goes against the purpose of the opening, because we are setting ourselves up to castle kingside and then expand on the queen side. So it kind of puts black into a dilemma. Do I want to go into a really dangerous situation where this pawn storm is already coming at the very beginning of the game, or do I want to leave myself uncastled? It's kind of tricky. So a lot of times black will just try to trade off pieces, do something like this, bring the queen out, try to trade queens. Of course, we know we should avoid trading in this case, so maybe we just move it all the way back. And white's attack here is going to be really dangerous. If black says, you know what, I'm probably fine. I've got this nice pawn structure. I'm going to just play normally. That could be a really big mistake. Now this queen can come down, castle. Now look how dangerous this is. It's going to be really, really hard to defend this. Now this was a pretty weak play from black, basically not recognizing the danger that they were going to be in. But white is in no danger. There's nothing that can happen quickly to them, even though they haven't castled yet, and black's development is kind of gummed up. So it's a really good surprise attack if you are white playing against black in the Sicilian. They choose the Sicilian and they go into the 𝐒𝐕𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸 trying to avoid either the dragon or the Najdorf, and you say, you play G4, Paul 𝐾𝐻EVS attack, and it's really, really dangerous. You're going to get a really good game. Usually, most opponents are not going to be prepared for this G4 move. I don't see it a lot when I play the 𝐒𝐕𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸 for whatever reason, even at relatively higher levels of the game when I'm playing people ranked 2,000 and above. A lot of people, for some reason, they don't tend to play the 𝐾𝐻EVS attack. They go for the more known lines of the English attack or the Fischer-Sozin attack or what have you. And so it makes it a really good surprise weapon, especially amongst relatively lower tournament level play. Okay, so we're playing black though. We want to know what to do against it. If you look up some of the grandmaster games in the database, it appears that perhaps the strongest moves, instead of just taking out your knight like this and developing more, is to actually play h6. Just play h6, and then if they insist on pushing the pawn immediately, then you can trade it off. And it still might be a little bit awkward. They're going to have this nice pin on the queen, and even though you can break the pin by playing this bishop here, it still makes castling kind of weird because now this h file is open. So you can do it this way, and you can block it in here, block this pin here, but we'll see that it's still pretty dangerous. Let's say we just continue normally again. And let's say we end up, or let's say we castle. now white's got a pawn storm coming, and they can castle long. They can bring their queen over again, something like this. These are just examples. You guys will have to analyze the moves yourselves. But it's pretty dangerous now. And so having this open H file, it makes a big difference. So once again, it kind of makes it so black wants to avoid castling on that side. So it's a tricky thing. But you want to play this H6 move regardless. If they go here, basically you want to not castle this way, or you want to either avoid castling and leave your king in the center, or you want to castle on the queen side. So let's say you just continue normally. They continue with an attack. Move your queen over. So you're out of the pin. Now you're not really worried about if they take this knight and you double your pawns. You're not really worried about anything. You can just go like this. You can castle this long way, and it's fine because the attack has kind of been nullified. So they don't want to do that. They don't want to just trade off this knight. They're going to want to keep the pressure and continue to try to open the position with a pawn move and to attack. So you're going to have a really interesting game here. It's going to be very dynamic, but you want to play H3. That's the key thing to do. Let's say they move their queen over. They're gonna have an attack against you, but if you just castle long now their attack is not going to be on your king anymore. It will just be on your queen side, and it's going to be an interesting game. It's going to be different than a lot of different Sicilian positions. But if you don't play H6, it can be very, very dangerous. And as you saw from that example, if you're playing white against a Sicilian and your opponent doesn't know what to do, you can win in like a few moves. They can make a really big mistake, and it's really uncomfortable. I mean, look how it hurts their development while white's pieces can come down really fast. I mean, if he wants to try to reroute the knight, he's making multiple moves. We can just move our rook over and try to push this up. It's not an easy way to get around this. That's why black will often have to trade off that knight. But that knight was actually black's most active piece. And so even though he can try to make this queen move or trade queens, we just move it back calmly, and we have an attack coming. We have these pawns coming. It's going to be dangerous. Okay, so really good surprise weapon to play against the 𝐒𝐈𝐻, and the key move being G4 immediately after they play the 𝐒𝐈𝐻. This has been powerful enough that it's made a lot of 𝐒𝐈𝐻 players say, you know what, I'm just going to play the 𝐒𝐻 instead, because it's not fun to play against the 𝐾𝐻 attack and then have to worry about this castling conundrum that it causes. Okay, so it's a really secret weapon for white, and if you're black and you choose to play the 𝐒𝐈𝐻, the 𝐒𝐈𝐻 is really solid against almost all lines, and very few people play the 𝐾𝐻 attack. They don't seem to know it, but if they do play it, play H6 and then castle queenside, and you're going to be fine. You're going to have a decent game. It's going to be an interesting game, a fight for the center. Maybe you'll have to play a little bit of defense on your king side, but your king will be safer, and you will avoid getting crushed by the 𝐾𝐻 attack, which a lot of people won't know how to do.